Welcome everybody to the Board of County Commissioners November 23rd meeting of County Administrator Issues and Updates. Gary, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Smith. All commissioners are present. Commissioner Sonia Fisher is remote on Zoom this morning. We will start on the issues list. We have quite a list. Commissioners Shull and Savas are leaving for a luncheon event by 11:05, so we'll get as much done as we can by 11:05, and then we'll continue issues later this afternoon. With that, first, COVID-19 and wildfire debris emergency declarations. Daniel Neibauer, Interim Director of Disaster Management, will present. There was a memo in your packet. We are coming up on deadlines, Commissioners, so we're seeking your direction on what to do about these two declarations. Go ahead, Daniel.
Daniel Neibauer, Interim Director of Disaster Management. Morning, Commissioners. Have a memo based on recommendations. We have two recommendations currently, one for COVID-19 and one for wildfire debris. I've polled Public Health, Social Services, BCS, DTD, all the departments that had different elements within the various COVID-19 declarations, and there are no grant requirements that have a declaration, and any other of the items that we had in the declaration, everyone determined they're no longer needed to go through, particularly with the shortened process of being able to get things on consent agenda. We feel that we don't need that, and our recommendation would be to allow that to expire December 31st. Of course, if something were to come back up, then we could do one again if it was grant dependent or something else needed to be done. On the wildfire debris, Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT, is still working on the cleanup, and they are moving from the private property debris removal, which they have done with ash and other hazard materials, and they're working on the hazardous trees and the right-of-way. So we're recommending extending that likely to sometime in February. We're getting a timeline from ODOT to let us know when they think they will complete that work. We will also so amend that one, and with a couple other things in there to mention specifically the right-of-way trees, the hazardous tree removals in the right-of-way. So we're going to recommend extending that declaration until ODOT has completed that work.
And Daniel, on the wildfire declaration, do you have the language in front of you that you would like in that one?
Right now, I have most of it. I'm going to work with
okay,
County
so
Council
that's
to get
forthcoming.
that. Yes.
Okay. I don't have trouble extending the wildfire declaration. I am not real keen on only doing a 2-month declaration, to be honest with you, because I won't have to come back and then redo it again for another month. So maybe we might want to stretch it out to 6 months. This is my thinking on stuff like this. When we re-upped the COVID declaration, we decided upon my request to do it at the end of December. I think I am okay with letting that expire, but commissioners, you have an opinion, I'm sure. Okay, commissioners, I think we're going to let the COVID declaration expire. We will extend the wildfire declaration and bring it forward with the language, Daniel. And thank you for your good work.
Okay. So we'll come to a business meeting before the end of the calendar year on the wildfire debris declaration. I do recommend making it at least 6 months, maybe 8 months. The board can always end it when they need to, but rather than, like the chair says, just extend it for a longer period of time.
And we need language ahead of time. So, yeah. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you. Next, Canby Ferry hours of operation change. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will present. There was a memo in the packet. Go ahead, please, Dan.
Thank you so much. This is informational only. Just here to share some information with you in case you might get a call. For those of you who were with us a couple of years back, and for those of you who just joined us, we had a talk about the Canby Ferry some time ago. Because essentially we have about $400,000 worth of road fund subsidy that goes into fund that particular ferry service. At that time, it was determined that we were going to retain the ferry service. We were tasked with going out, trying to find additional revenue, or trying to find ways to cut costs. I'm here to report that we have not been very successful in additional revenue. We've asked the state and other entities. We still are approaching those entities to see if there is some revenue to help us with that. I am here to share with you, though, that we are proposing to do some hours of operation change at the ferry. And some schedule changing. Basically moving from a 5/8 schedule to 4/10s. We have a vacancy. Net result of that is about $100,000 worth of savings, about a 25% reduction on the road fund allocation currently assigned to the ferry. It will have some minor impact because it will basically delay the starting hours of operation, the morning hours, the early AM hours. There's low ridership then. We've got about I think it's 15, give or take, in the memo, that take the ferry at that time. We're informing you of this because we will probably be starting sharing this with the public as soon as possible, probably the week after next. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, a couple things. Well, I imagine if you cut hours, you're cutting revenue.
Correct, but it's the lowest ridership time.
Got it. I picked up on that. So my question is, $100,000 a year, does that mean that you are going to reduce your total FTE
Yes.
count?
One position.
You're going to eliminate one FTE count in DTD?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not a lateral kind of a thing?
No, it's currently a vacant position, so there's no one currently filling that position. We would remove that one FTE from our count.
I'm unclear, are we currently running 410s or you want to move to 410s?
They will be moving, the work schedule will be
Yeah.
moving to 410.
Okay,
That doesn't change the ferry schedule that much, except for it will still be open 7 days a week because they overlap. It's
Oh.
not like they have Saturday and Sunday off.
Okay.
So basically, it allows us to reschedule that ferry operation.
all right. Okay.
Yep.
Mark, you're up.
Dan, for the people who rely on the ferry to get to work, what's their alternative to using the ferry?
There are detours south and there are detours north to make that connection to the west or to the north.
Okay.
So they'll have to look for alternative routes.
So nobody's going to be isolated by not having the ferry on a Friday
Just
morning?
Maybe a longer drive for some
Okay.
folks.
Okay.
But if you look at the figures, we actually acknowledged the loss of revenue in the memo. If you look at 15 cars per day, it's a loss of about $27,000. If you take that versus the vacant FTE position of 128, it's about a net savings of $101,000.
Understood.
Okay. Martha?
Yeah, so still no conversations with the city of Canby about?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I know we were actually
Yeah.
researching a discussion with ODOT
Okay,
and about some possible subsidy there, and I was just informed yesterday that was unsuccessful. But we're going to continue to knock on that door, and we can have talks with the city of Canby.
okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. And I say that because that public process we had, those meetings, that forum we had, those forums, I think there was two of them that we held at, in Canby. I think what we learned from that was that quite a few people in Canby and Wilson, that particular area, Wilsonville, use that. So it is location for the most part. So it seems like we should be, and because many members of the city council were present in those meetings and concerned, I think we should be informing them and letting them know. And I recall that the ask was if there was any kind of a funding issue, at least giving the city the option maybe to see if they wanted to help augment our funding.
And I'd have to confirm with that, because Mike Becher's been dealing with those conversations, but I'll confirm that, whether or not we've reached out to Canby yet or not, and get back to all of you, send an email.
Yeah, it just seems like we should at least let them know and give them the option. That way, it doesn't come as bad news that we decided already.
That's a good approach, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other comments? Thank you for the update, Dan.
You bet.
So then you are going to talk to Canby first, report back to the board before you implement this? Is that
I'm going to have Mike reach out to Canby, then we will not implement that until that discussion's taken
okay?
place.
And then loop back to the board, please.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, Veterans Village Land Lease Renewal. Dan, stay here. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services will join. There was a memo in your packet. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Yes, Dan and I are here today to talk about the Vets Village and the lease agreement that's currently in place. We're here to gain your approval on extending that lease for at least this year and the option to extend 1 year after that. We think by extending that lease, you give us the opportunity to look at that property as well as other properties as we look at our full spectrum of services with the housing services. So we just need more time, so we think that lease will provide that time that we need for that process. And Dan has a lot of history, so I'm not sure if you need it.
We all have history.
So, well,
I don't have a problem with extending the lease, and then you
I don't
reporting
either.
back later what you want to do for the future. Commissioners, do you have any issues with that?
No, I do have a question though, and so Dan, this is still a property that the development agency owns?
That's correct.
Okay, so it seems to me to clean everything up, at some point, we need to, either transfer that property to the county
That is correct.
or DTD, but out of the hands of the development agency. That way we can close out that.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a discussion we tend to come back and have with the board about what opportunities and/or options exist, because you're right, the agency can't hold it into perpetuity under this. We don't have any development proposals on it. I mean, it's a difficult, we've talked about this stuff all before, difficult property to develop, infrastructure issues, access issues, 115 is not in great shape. So there's no clamoring right now for the property, and that's why we chose to site the Vets Village there.
Do you recall the acreage there, the usable acreage,
Up top, I want to say it's like 2.5.
including both sides?
That's both sides. Yeah, the Vets Village, I think, is a little bit over an acre.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
Let's talk. I spoke to someone this weekend who's interested in the property, but it may not be, maybe too small.
And we have other inquiries as well, so about other services that I was talking about.
Well, that's fine and dandy, but what are we going to do with the Veterans Village? Do we have all these properties available? It says here in the memo at the end of a 2-year pilot project on December 15, 2020. Evidently, the board extended it at the end of last year.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct, okay, so it sounds like that we need to figure out what we're going to do with the Veterans Village. As far as I am aware, it's a very successful program. And I guess a decision that would have to be made, do we sell our properties because we can make money on them? We have interested commercial interests, or do we reserve some of our land for social services? And that is a decision point that I believe this board will have to make. Paul, you're up.
Yeah, well, thanks. I don't want anyone listening to this to think that we're doing anything that's going to interfere or disrupt or close better. We're not doing that. So this is more of a paperwork transaction that we're talking about to close out so that's why the change of ownership ideally being within
Correct.
the county umbrella.
Correct.
So I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression. And then Rod and I talked on Monday, and we're looking forward to the work session next month on the sheltering, so we can talk about maybe a more holistic approach about how we tackle that and where we place sites like that.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will bring this back to you at a business meeting before the end of the year for a formal lease agreement that you will approve on consent agenda, right, gentlemen?
My only pause is that council has not started the agreement yet. We want to make sure the board will authorize it first. So if we are able to do so, we will do so. It may extend into next year, early next year.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's fine, Dan.
All right. Great, thank you. No worries, thank you. Okay, next, county jail statutory inspection. Commissioners, 1 second, please. Per Oregon Revised Statute 169.040, the county commissioners are the inspectors of the local correctional facilities within each county. As Clackamas County has a jail, that means once a year, Clackamas County commissioners, you shall inspect the correctional facility just to make sure that everything is working appropriately and up to standard. So I apologize, this is on me, no one else. Slipped it, so we have not done the tour for this year, so there are 6 weeks left in the calendar year. So asking which commissioners would like to do this tour. All of you can do it, although I recommend 2 of you, not more than 2, so there's not a quorum, or you can delegate authority to me. But seeking, I'd like to know who would like to do the tour this year.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
And I would be happy to join Commissioner Scholl unless there is another commissioner that would rather go in my stead.
That is absolutely
It's been
fine.
several years since I've toured the jail. I've done it before, and maybe there's something new.
I don't know.
Okay.
Try-
Great, so Chair Smith and Commissioner Schull will do the tour. I'll work with the jail staff, and we'll get that scheduled before the end of the calendar year. Excellent. Thank you very much. Next business meeting for review. Your business meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday, November 24th at 10 a.m. It's a day earlier because of the Thanksgiving holiday. You have a public hearing on a road transfer from Clackamas County to the city of Molalla. You currently have 1 consent agenda item, but I will ask that all items for today's consent agenda go to tomorrow's schedule, so that will be added if you approve later this morning. But that's your agenda for tomorrow. If you have any questions, please let me know today. Next, advisory boards and commission appointments. Mary, would you please go ahead?
Yes, the Developmental Disabilities Council, staffed by Health, Housing, and Human Services Department, currently has between 7 and 18 openings on their commission due to term expirations. 18 members are allowed with 3-year terms. The initial recommendation is as follows. Lisa Ledison, 1, 3 terms ending December 1st, 2024. Gabrielle Graybert Rodriguez, 2, one term ending December 1st, 2020. Neil Dixon, 1, 2 terms ending 12/1/2023. Shasta Kearns Moore, 1, 3 terms ending 12/1/2024, and that's what I have.
Thank you, Mary. Any comments from commissioners?
Move to approve the ABCs.
Seconded.
Commissioner Savas has approved to approve the ABCs for the disabilities and Developmental Disabilities Council. Commissioner Scholl has seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion on this?
Yeah, this is Sonia. I have a question.
Yes.
So looking at the materials, when you go to who is currently serving, it's blank. Is this initial recruitment, are these the only 4 members that are going to be on the council?
If I may, let me read something that I have here. It's from Amy Butler. Just to clarify, we are reestablishing the DD Council as we had a staff member leave a few years ago who handled much of this council, and then COVID happened. As such, no one has been in a meeting for at least the past year and a half, which is why there are no current members.
What my question was, I wasn't sure if the form was complete. Thank you.
Wow, that's something. Thank you for asking that, Commissioner Fisher. Any other comments? Mary, would you please call the poll?
Yes, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Commissioners, going back to the jail tour, I apologize, I said something that was wrong. That is, you do not have a quorum requirement when you do a public, there's not a public meeting requirement when you do a site visit to the jail. So more than 2 of you could go, and it's not a public meeting. So is anyone else interested in going beyond Tootie and Mark? Okay, I'm sorry, I wanted to close the loop there. Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Very good, thank you. Next, Chair, with your permission, may we move to the consent agenda requests?
Sure.
Excellent. We'll get started. Housing Authority of Clackamas County. You're first. Come on down. Consent agenda. First, approval to execute a contract between the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and El Programa Hispanio Calaclico to provide supportive housing case management fund and housing navigation and placement, not to exceed $462,917. No county general funds are involved. Rod, please introduce who's with you.
Yes, I have with me today Tony Carter. She is the interim director of HAC, Housing Authority. And so she's here if we have any detailed questions you need answered.
Welcome, Tony. Thank you.
Briefly on this one, this program will assist households in locating and securing permanent housing by assisting them in overcoming any barriers they may be experiencing. They will link households to rent assistance vouchers programs, including the Regional Long-Term Rent Assistance Program, and will also link them to ongoing supportive housing case management as needed to stay stably housed. And as Administrator mentioned, there's no county general fund involved in this transaction.
Any objections or questions for the presenter? Mark?
One question. This program is open to all citizens of the county? Okay.
Correct.
Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so I gather this is, and I'm glad to see it, a culturally specific, it appears, service. So do we have, I know if we're going to be growing that effort, other ethnicities, is there enough of a force out there to deal with that, with nonprofits or so forth that can get into other ethnicities?
Yes, and on this particular contract, you'll see that they are having to ramp up for Clackamas County in order to do this program in our county. But yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Martha?
So when you say ramp up, what does that mean? I mean, what's
So El
specifically?
Programa has typically been serving in Multnomah County, so we are bringing them into our county, so they're going to have to be hiring staffing to work in our county and get to know our resources.
And is this the result of the SHS?
Yes, it is.
Dollars? Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's nice to know, Martha.
Well, I think that we need to make sure that we showcase everything we do with those dollars, as make it clear what we've been doing for years, because there've been some significant misunderstandings out there.
Yes, and let's have staff put that on the list that we're constantly updating regarding the use of SH dollars. and any other housing activities that
Yeah.
we're engaged in.
Because we've been doing it for a very long time, and I think that we've handled issues here very well for a number of years, and that needs to be clarified. So, as well as new things that we're starting, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Very good. All right, item 2, approval of a sub-recipient agreement. I'm sorry, we're now at Health, Housing, and Human Services. Number 1, approval of a sub-recipient agreement with Clackamas Women's Services to provide homeless shelter services, children's programming 2021. No county general funds are involved, but what is the financial amount, Rod?
Yes, this program will provide children's education and awareness services to individuals and families as related to overcoming sexual and domestic violence trauma. Approximately 60 homeless families during the program year will be served with this contract.
What is the amount, Rod?
The amount is $15,000.
Okay.
Any comments or objections?
I do have just a question, and that is, I know that we do a lot with Clackamas Women's Services, and, you know, that's great. They do great work. But I am wondering as we go down, so it wasn't a raise on the last one as well, but I'm just wondering, and in the conversation today, one of the items I have is about our procurement processes, but I also wanted to talk about the metrics involved, make sure that how some of these nonprofits are performing, and basically, ideally, to point out the ones that are really performing really well and acknowledge that. So I would like to know, and maybe it's a conversation offline, how we, when we see these dollars go out, have some kind of a sense as to the metrics in the past contract, how they performed. And, you know, are we meeting the mark? It seems to me that approving is one thing, but making sure that, and I'm sure staff does that internally, but I think at our level, we should probably know how many people were served, you know, what the performance level was, you know, regardless of the service it is. I'm not picking on any one nonprofit or particular service in general.
Okay, and
Whether it's supportive housing services or a federal or state grant, whatever, it doesn't really matter what the source is.
Okay, and would you be looking for that on amendments where we're continuing a contract, or would you be wanting to hear that on every contract that we're initiating?
Maybe let's talk offline.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk offline. I'd like to know, just throw out the idea, the concept of how we can get an idea how they're performing.
Okay, because I will say during the procurement process, it is one of the criteria we look at their past performance, and so if they're performing poorly, they ought not be moving forward to a new contract. So that's a embedded in there, but yeah, anyway, we need to get you that information. We could even, outside of this meeting, we could send you information on how the programs are doing as well. So that might be a way to keep you up to date.
Yeah. You know, ideally, I've always been a person that I like to incentivize and recognize people that perform well, or groups or anything that performs well, and point that out, and give the reward that way, as opposed to being more, you know, automatically by your system, if someone's not performing, they're not going to win the contract, but at least point out the ones that are doing a great job.
Okay.
Any other comments? And I'm going to walk over and get that little charging device for my laptop. So Gary, please continue.
All right, thank you.
Hey, sorry, I'm raising my hand, but it
Yes,
doesn't
Chair.
seem to be getting recognized. I just want to point out that these H3S is not in our materials, not indexed, and it's a 145-page doc. So I'm not sure. If that can be done for later so that it's easier to find where we're at in this presentation or how we're.
Commissioner Fisher broke up, I think. I didn't catch it.
Can you repeat that, Commissioner Fisher?
Oh, yeah. So the Health and Housing Human Services consent agenda is not indexed on our materials. It's a 145-page document.
I can't answer that. We're all kind of looking at each other. So you're saying you have trouble receiving the information that you need to read on this, correct?
Well, it's not indexed. It's 145 pages. So Gary, can
Yep.
somebody before the end of the day at least index that online? I mean, I can take notes and follow along, but I really do like to read as we follow along.
Yeah, so it's posted online. It doesn't have, it's called an index or a bookmark where you can just click on a section and it jumps right to it. Instead, it's just like all there, so you have to literally scroll through. I'm sorry, I don't know what Shannon, do you have an update?
We'll resend the bookmark document right now, and so it'll appear in people's emails, and I will have the web team updated immediately.
I'm sorry,
That
Commissioners.
is wonderful. Thank you so much, Shannon. That'll really help.
Yeah. So right away it'll be in your emails, Commissioners, but we'll get it online as soon as we can. I apologize, Commissioners. Okay, may we move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, item 2, approval of a subordination agreement with JLL Real Estate Capital LLC for a home loan with Mount Scott Terrace and attached legal counsel board order approving agreement provided there are no material changes. Subordination is to agree to JLL Real Estate Capital LLC in first position for a loan term of 7 years. No county general funds involved. Changes in home requirements or home funding are involved. Can you explain this more, Rod?
Okay.
Please.
This item relates to the home program loan of $450,000 for the development of the Mount Scott Terrace, a multifamily rental project consisting of 52 2- and 3-bedroom units targeting working families located in Happy Valley. Guardian entity is acquiring the limited partner interest with a refinance. Guardian entity will continue to own and operate the property, abiding by all the home requirements in the original home loan documents. So basically, this is really obligating them to continue to operate under the home requirements. Once we give them a loan, there's certain things we have them, they have to be held to, and this is simply transferring that to the Guardian entity.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, so the population it's serving, its families, and at what level of AMI, Ron?
I don't have that
Okay.
with me, but I can get that information. But
Okay.
I'm sure it's going to be, I'm going to say low income for sure, but I'll
Right.
get you the exact
Probably
AMI.
30% and below, or 60% below, or?
At least 60% below, but
Okay,
probably
probably.
even better than that.
Okay.
yeah.
Can we make, again, let's earmark these kinds of things, because this is a capacity builder. And again, I think we need to get
Excellent.
this out as well, as much of this as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I see where you're
Okay.
going with
Let's
that.
just,
Very good. Rod,
Make a list
since
of
there's a
what we
mortgage
want.
involved, is there a signature required?
I'm sure there will be at some
Okay.
point, and that's where we'll get that.
I will be more than happy to sign this document. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Need a, move, I guess move on.
Okay, yes. Item 3, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with the state of Oregon, acting by and through the Oregon Health Authority for operation as a local public health authority for Clackamas County. Contract is not to exceed $10,352,667.14. Funding is provided by the state of Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, funding through this amendment allows the Public Health Division to provide services such as HIV prevention services, tobacco prevention and education, Women, Infants, and Children's Program, known as the WIC program, and there's no county general funds involved in this.
Any comments on this?
Question on that.
Yes, Mark?
Is this money limited to the uses you just mentioned? Or can it be used by the health authority in Clackamas County for other things other than what you just mentioned? It's not restrictive, is it?
I don't believe so. I think it's all operations, anything that would fall under operations of the public health.
Any other questions? Seeing none?
4, approval to accept funding from the Oregon Health Authority for elimination of behavioral health inequities. Funding agreement is $50,000. No county general funds are involved.
With this funding, the Oregon Health Authority health centers will partner with Oregon Health Equity Alliance to complete an organizational racial assessment, the BARHE. This assessment will help guide areas of strength and need within the organization. Funds will offset the cost of time for steering committee members who will meet and organize this work, and also those who are facilitating focus groups. There's no general fund involved in this transaction.
Questions or objections for the presenter?
Item 5, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Gladstone School District to embed a mental health specialist at Gladstone High School. Contract not to exceed $61,521 for 1 year. This is a revenue agreement. No county general funds are involved.
The purpose of this agreement is to embed a mental health specialist at Gladstone School District to provide mental health and behavioral health services. No county general fund.
Any other questions for this? See,
I want to real
Mark?
quick. This says specialist at Gladstone High School, but you said Gladstone School District. So it's going to be beneficial to grade school kids too, right?
I would have to get back to you. Let me see. The specialist will be on site 2.5 days per week during the school year, providing consultation and education for school counselors and staff, screening and coordination of care for students, and providing direct behavioral health therapy.
How I
That-
read this
yeah.
is, when we do business with school district, it is the school district who signs the contract. They have decided to embed this particular person at the high school. That's how I read
That's how-
that. Am
that's
I
how I'm reading it as
incorrect
well.
in that?
You're correct.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay, great, go ahead.
6, approval of an amendment to a grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for emergency transitional housing services in the amount of $105,000. It does use county general funds through the Affordable Housing and Services Fund. Go ahead.
Yes, Clackamas Women's Services provides services for victims of domestic violence, and the funds will allow the agency to continue to administer a program that mitigates the risk of homelessness for vulnerable members of the county through the provision of emergency motel vouchers for low-income and high-risk households. And this is from your policy package funding.
Any other questions or comments? Mark?
Is that amount budgeted in the general fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Next.
7, approval of a local sub-recipient grant agreement for Northwest Family Services to provide family resource coordinators in Clackamas County. The agreement is for $149,119, funded through the Oregon Early Learning Division and Clackamas County General Funds.
Yes, Northwest Family Services will continue to provide family resource coordinators to connect families with children ages 0 to 6 who experience barriers to school success with holistic services that promote family stability, healthy child development, and school readiness. The geographic focus of this grant is Gladstone and Oregon City.
Any comments for the presenter? Seeing none.
8, approval of a local sub-recipient grant agreement for Metropolitan Family Services to provide family resource coordinators in Clackamas County. The agreement is for $149,119, funded through Oregon Early Learning Division. No county general funds are involved with this one.
Yes, and this is the same as above in terms of programming, but this would cover the North Clackamas School District, and it's with Metropolitan Family Services. And I'll give you a little bit more about the FRCs, since this is new to some of you, but the FRCs, the Family Resource Coordinators, coordinate referrals for families experiencing barriers to school success and follows up with the families and service providers to ensure timely access and ensure that services have effectively met mutually identified needs. So it's basically they're linking families in need with services in the community, and that's been a very successful program at the early learning, early childhood stage of life. No county general fund on that one.
Any comments?
Question, does that include childcare of any kind?
It may include them linking them to childcare providers.
Okay.
It doesn't
But
provide
it doesn't
childcare.
provide.
But not providing, but
Yeah.
a referral service type. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Next,
you.
Transportation and Development. Approval of an urban growth management agreement between the City of Happy Valley and Clackamas County, Happy Valley Agma East. There is no fiscal impact. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you so much. This is a long time in the making. We are here to finalize our urban growth management agreement with Happy Valley. We were here back on May 11th of 2021 at a policy session to share this with you. At that time, you had instructed us to go and advance this and get finalization for this document. I want to remind you, this is basically, they have two separate urban growth management agreements for Happy Valley. They have the old agreement and they have this new agreement which covers the East Happy Valley portion, okay? Essentially, I'm not sure how familiar you are with UGMAs, but they basically are instructions and rules and regulations that we all agree to on how we're going to coordinate efficiently and effectively for these areas that are moving from unincorporated to incorporated, and who has certain responsibilities in that discussion. It is a 10-year agreement. As you can see on page 1, it's a 10-year agreement that will automatically renew for an additional 10 years if not terminated by either party. There is a termination clause in here. Upon 90 days notice, we can terminate it whenever we want to. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
This new agreement, this new Agma, does not cancel out anyway the old Agma on the other geographic location.
Correct.
Correct, thank you. Mark?
Dan, is the Happy Valley City Council in agreement with this?
They are in agreement, and they've actually already signed this agreement.
Okay.
Yep.
Seeing no other questions, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, elected officials, and this is our assessor, Tammy. Approval of a resolution in the matter of distribution of funds from 2021 House Bill 5006 for reimbursement of lost property tax revenue related to the 2020 wildfires. Both Tammy and Bronson are here. You've discussed this at issues previously, Commissioners. This is just closing the loop. Go ahead, please, Tammy and Bronson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tammy Little, Clackamas County Assessor with Bronson Rueda, Deputy Assessor. We're back this morning on House Bill 5006, as Gary said. You previously, on November 2nd, approved moving this forward, but on November 5th, the Oregon Department of Revenue revised the guidance to the counties that qualify, that were impacted by the 2020 wildfires on their receipt, the application for receipt of these grant funds. The main differences in the revised guidance include the full amount will not be distributed in December of 2021 as previously discussed. Instead, the amount to be distributed next month is only the first year's estimated amount of lost revenue to taxing districts. At some point in 2022, the Department of Revenue will issue additional guidance to apply for the remaining funds in the 3 subsequent years. The amount that we will receive in December to distribute is $116,831. And the revision also requires the application include a sworn statement that those funds are the estimated lost revenue for the September 2020 wildfires. Timing is critical on this. The application has to be submitted by email to the Department of Revenue by December 1st. So if you have any questions, really it's just a change in not distributing all 4 years up front, but 1 year at a time.
Yeah, we had a policy session on this
Okay.
earlier, correct?
Yes.
We did on November 2nd.
Yes, and you're coming back for final approval?
We are coming back because the Department of Revenue revised the guidance on the application.
I see.
We now will apply for 1 year at a time. And in
Instead of all
2020
4 years?
Instead of all 4 years.
Okay,
And in 2022, they'll issue further guidance
Oh,
for the
dear.
3 subsequent years.
okay. Any further questions for the presenters on this one? And what would you like from us today, Gary?
It's just to put on your consent agenda tomorrow so we can get the resolution done.
I'm okay with that,
Yeah.
Commissioners?
Yep, great. All right.
Thank you, Tammy
Thank
and
you.
Bronson.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Technology Services. Approval of a contract with North Star Electrical Contractors for the Clackamas Broadband Exchange Fiber WCCCA connection. I'll ask you to say what that is. Total contract value is $179,000 paid from the city of Hillsborough. No county general funds are involved. Dave and Duke, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Smith, Mr. Schmidt. As always, we're happy to be here. As you imagine, it's a CBX issue. I'm here with Duke Dexter, our project manager. Basically, this is a request for approval of a contract with North Star Electrical for the installation of fiber to the amount of $179,000. Quick background, Clackamas County 911 CCOM is part of the MAGICS, which is the Metro Area Joint CAD System Consortium. And basically, it's between Columbia County, Washington County, and Lake Oswego, and it's the 911 centers all interconnected for communications and support. Obviously, that's a critical infrastructure that needs to be up and running at all times. So we work with them to make sure, as part of the partnership, that they have multiple connections, fiber connections between the centers. In this situation, WACA, which is another fun one, the Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency, that's their 911 center, is relocating. So they need to have new fiber connections. In an IGA that was signed back in between CBX and Hillsborough back in August, we became project managers to help them do that implementation for them. It is their fiber, we're working with them to do it, but we're the project managers to help them do it for, because obviously we have the background to know how to do it, and they don't have the resources right now. And so we're working with them to get it installed. We went out for bid to get the fiber put in by some contractors. There was 2 people that bid for it, and the winning one was North Star. So we're hoping to get approval to go ahead and proceed with the implementation. The Clackamas County is not paying for this. It is being paid for by Hillsborough.
Any objections or further questions? Thank you for that explanation. It was very clear.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to jump ahead to North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Milwaukee and the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District for grant administration, construction, and operation of Phase 3 of Milwaukee Bay Park. Estimated annual cost for this agreement is $32,000, funded through the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District operating budget. No county general funds are involved. Quickly, I know, Mike, you're going to talk about this. Now, Commissioners, you've talked about this many, many times, so this is the construction IGA, not the financial IGA. But with that, Mike, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners and Chair Gary. This IGA establishes the roles and responsibilities between the City of Milwaukee and CPRD for grant administration, construction, and operation of the Phase 3. The only other note that I wanted to add on here, it's in your staff report, is November 2nd of this year. The City Council of the City of Milwaukee did adopt Council Resolution 56-2021 to authorize the city manager to execute their half of, or their part of their signature on this agreement. And as the county administrator mentioned, this is not the funding IGA, which is still being discussed in the public and getting comments. That'll come to you at a later date. And if there's any questions.
Commissioner Samus.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but, well, maybe I do. It's more of a comment. So we discussed this. We've been wanting to see this agreement for over a year or so on the advice of our legal counsel, Mr. Munns. And so I'm glad that we're here and honor our commitment to this. So I'm good to go. I do want to mention that in the discussions with Milwaukee in July and August, Gary, you were there with the first meeting with the city manager, the mayor, myself, our legal counsel. And the other agreement that was talked about briefly, not a lot of emphasis on, but we wanted to get done, was not the funding agreement, but the master IGA cleanup. So my question would be, is there any discussions currently with the city of Milwaukee on cleaning up that document, the master IGA?
Yes, there was efforts begun, and we had set up some regular meetings with the City of Milwaukee, but the decision on their end was to hold off on that discussion until this had been settled, so that we had a firm footing of which to base our update from. So that effort will continue and more in earnest once we can move forward.
Yeah, I'm glad we're here at this point, because like I said, we just want to honor what we promised, and we're going to deliver and move forward with the 2-Inc contract, it looks like, on items 1 and 2. So again, I'm good with that. And I just want to point out to my colleagues as your liaison that while we've had this IGA wanted to get in place for a while for Milwaukee Bay Park, the master IGA has been lingering for much longer than the other one. So, but I don't want to tie this project up. I want to make sure we're going forward with it. So,
Thank you. Any other comments for commissioners on this item? Seeing none.
All right, item 2, Milwaukee Bay Park Project Design Services, Contract Amendment Number 5 with 2-Inc. Studio Landscape Architecture. The fee for amendment number 5 is $646,536 for a total contract value of, is this right?
No, there's an extra zero in there. It should be $809,570.
Thank you. That did look awkward. All right, $800,574. Funded through system development charges and North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District general funds. No county general funds are involved. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you again. This, again, as was read in the title, is just a contract extension for the 2-Inc. Or amendment for the 2-Inc. contract. This is going to allow us to move forward into the next phase of design to take the numbers that had been reached a couple of years ago, provide current construction numbers to give us a place to base where we need to look at then any design engineering, value engineering, or scope reduction if we don't determine that we are going to have all the money. We don't know where the numbers are going to come in right now. That's why we've been really chomping at the bit to get this 2-ink work up and moving so we can figure out where we need to go.
So Mike, I think the big question for us is if the bids come in higher than anticipated, do you then come back to us as sitting as the Parks District Advisory and then we make a decision?
What I would envision happening, the way our agreement that we're just talking about here, and more particularly the funding IGA is set up, is that if design costs come in higher than what we determine we can afford or have the money for, the city staff and NCPRD staff will sit down first and try and figure out how to reduce the scope and then make recommendations for that. So, very similar to what we've been doing in other projects of figuring out what our dollar is, figure out what our gap is, make recommendations for either, like I said, value engineered or scope reduction.
Value engineered would be very important, and I would hope the other two parties involved would be very earnest in understanding that we do not have a blank checkbook or funds to be throwing around at this park, any other park, or any other construction project out there. So just know, as chair, I am okay with going forward with this. However, I'm not amenable to increased costs and expecting the BCC to somehow go find the gap that will be. I'm sure there's going to be a gap here. So I will gladly fall on that sword because we have probably 8 or 9 construction projects in this county, and we can't afford the cost overruns, or we'll just sit back and wait. I'm perfectly happy with doing that. Commissioner Savas.
I just want to point out, and I think a lot of these projects were not aware, and I wanted to correct the record in the past, and we'll do it again this morning, and that is that this project and other projects have had and still have funding gaps even beyond the estimated value today. So this project is not, the funds have not been fully identified as of yet, and it's been that way since the beginning. We knew that early on. So just so we all know, and I think at least the city manager and the mayor seem to be amenable to, if it needs to be phased, it could possibly be phased in that conversation I referenced earlier. So just got to live within our means and realistic. But I do want to point out something aside from this that Director Bork pointed out to me yesterday and kind of alluded to, I think, a couple weeks ago, and that is that, if I heard you correctly yesterday, our expenses for the district overall, that were really in the red currently, that were $200,000, I think you mentioned yesterday, were $200,000 in the red, cost outpacing revenues, basically, overall. Is that correct?
That's our budgeted. In our approved budget, when I first got here, that was the first thing I looked at was beginning fund balance, ending fund balance for the budget that I'm in. And as it is right now, it was estimated to be dropping or reducing our fund balance by about $240,000. With that said, I think I also had mentioned, but we didn't really talk much about, as we finish up and close out the fiscal years and as CARES Act funding and other sources have come in, our fiscal situation looks better than what it did, but that's because of pretty much one-time corrections, not things that are going to help operationally for future years. So yes, I would say, we're in a position where we have to really pay attention to money coming in and money going out, because it's very close to the balance at this point, and we want to make sure that we don't flip the negative way.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, Mr. Bork, on this amendment number 5 for $646,000, is it correct that brings the total cost of the landscape architecture fee to $809,000?
That's correct, yes.
And will we see an increase in that cost for design for this one park?
Increase in the project cost itself?
No.
Oh.
Just for the fee for design of the park by 2 Studio Landscape Architecture.
No, this amendment should take us to project construction time, assuming funds are authorized.
To
So this should
include-
be to finish the design.
To include all design and engineering and anything,
Unless we get to. a
anything
point-
short of actual construction of the park.
Yeah, unless we get to something where we have to significantly change the scope of our contract with 2 Inc., which I don't anticipate. Again, we'd be looking at scope reductions, value engineering type of things. Unless we had to go in and say, we're starting from scratch again, which would cost us more. As it's designed, this $600,000 amount should get us to construction.
Okay.
So,
All right, thanks.
so phasing, potential phasing would be incorporated in this work if it was foreseen that there's no way to fill the gap.
Well, I can't say that they wouldn't charge us more for, again, additional work. This amount is for a set amount of design work. If we decided to phase it in, there may have to be an additional amendment, but
Oh,
I
hope
can't say
not.
that for sure.
My concern is that this project the price is creeping up, and we're looking at $809,000 plus for just design work on the park. And that's expensive.
It is.
In my opinion. I don't know if what the competitive process was on the selection, but that is a lot of money for the designing of a park, and we're trying to get this thing done for the people, and the price just keeps creeping up. So, I mean, we got to do something to hold down our costs, and I hope we don't go over $809,000 for a design fee.
I completely agree. I'm going to be doing my best to hold these budgets within line of what we've got. But again, remembering I wasn't involved in the first 4
Sure.
amendments to the contract
Well,
either.
at least 2 of us weren't, and
Yeah.
this is the 3rd revision, from what I understand, of this particular park, and it's very usable and it's very nice, and still, it's one of the most used and better functional parks in the district. So thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
I'm kind of curious with this revisions of contract. This is the contractor requesting those revisions, pretty much, at least that's my understanding.
Or is it the park district?
Or is it the park, I mean, you're contracting for a design, so why are we continually revisiting the design? It hasn't been set in stone yet? It hasn't been designed?
No, where the last effort was with 2 Inc. was to get us conceptual drawings and some basic finance numbers that were based on original estimates from a couple of years ago.
Okay.
What they're doing now is we're moving to the construction document phase,
Okay.
where they're going to be putting real numbers based on current market values, current costs, coming up with a project cost, and then doing all of the construction documents, all the plans, all the permitting, all of that. That's all included in this amendment.
So it's new work that
Yes.
they're doing this cost. So
Picking
overall,
up where they left
left
off,
off. So
essentially.
how much have we paid them just in total? So
Well, total value, if this was approved, is the $809,574.
Okay,
total.
that's even from last time?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
So if I'm reading this correct, Mike, we've only paid this contractor about $200,000.
Correct.
And this amendment is to add $600 more
Yes.
thousand to that contract. So that's, I think answers your
Okay,
question.
answers your
We paid him about $200,000 up to date, today.
Yes.
I would agree the costs are astronomical, and my gut feeling on this, and hope I'm wrong. If the design phase is this expensive, and we keep rolling up costs on this, I don't know how this project gets off the ground. Hello, people. Go ahead.
And again, that's hopefully where I'll be able to bring some project management expertise. I was just able to hire my full-time planning and development manager. You're all familiar with Heather Cook. She's accepted the position full-time. So that's part of our job, is to try and hold the line as much as we can. Again, she kind of inherited some of these numbers as well when
Right.
she started, so.
Well, I appreciate your efforts on this and everything you're trying to do. It's much needed.
Thank you.
Any other comments or objections for this going forward? Mark, objection?
Chair, I can't object to it at this time, but I'm very concerned about how expensive this design is.
As I am too. I think we all are like, on this. Any objections to this moving forward, commissioners? Okay, it will appear on the consent agenda, Gary.
Tomorrow, it'll be on tomorrow's consent agenda. That's where you can vote, yes or no, but.
And any
just putting it
commissioner
forward.
can pull any item off the consent agenda and vote on it individually. I have allowed that before.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Next, Water Environment Services. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Water Environment Services and the City of Estacada for hauling and storage services. There is no financial impact, no general funds. Greg, go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, this is IGA with the City of Estacada. They approached us. They have some capacity issues with their digester, and regulatory requirements prevent them from applying biosolids in the winter on their fields. So we recently completed our digester project. We have extra capacity, so we'd like to help them out. And so we worked out this IGA where we essentially just recover our costs and allow them for the next 3 years or so until they add capacity to utilize our facility.
So the community is growing out there. Is that why there's an issue, Greg?
Yes, and they didn't invest in their system for
Oh, do they plan on
decades.
future
Yes,
expansion?
yes, they're under orders from DEQ to
Ah, okay.
upgrade their facility, so.
All right.
But yeah,
Any-
we're happy to help out a fellow county utility. And
And I do appreciate that, by the way. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes. Now, this hauling is for the sludge waste coming out, so that's going to be done by the people we just contracted with to do it for Wes. Is
I
that correct?
I don't know who they use to haul, whether they do that, whether they're going to use their own vehicles, or if they contract that work out. I do not know the answer.
Okay, so I don't understand what Wes is going to do for
So
Estacada.
we are going to accept that, those digested sludge.
Yes.
So they're going to truck it to our facility, we're going to put it in our digester, process it.
Oh, I see,
land
okay.
it.
Got it.
So this is processing, not trucking.
Got it.
Correct, they are going to deliver it to
Okay,
us.
and what's the amount?
Well, 70,000 gallons is what they're initially going to bring us.
Well, no, I mean, what is the financial cost and?
So
and
we're charging them
Contract
10
contract arrangement
10 cents a
financially?
gallon.
10,
10
well,
cents.
for a total of?
Well, it depends on how much they bring us. So the 70,000 initial will be $7,000. And that's what our operations staff feel is a pretty good approximation of what it costs us to process that.
Is that 70,000 gallons a month?
No, it'll be once, maybe twice a year.
Okay.
Okay. Any objections to this moving forward? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I'm moving back to Human Resources. Item 1, we're pulling because staff is not present, but item 2, we do have staff, so Trish, please come forward. It's approval of a contract with Providence Health and Services, Oregon, to provide medical screening services. Total contract value is not to exceed $500,000. It is billed directly to departments. There is some general fund, but otherwise it's other funds that departments pay as part of their employee costs, personnel costs. Trish is with Human Resources. Can you give any more details on this, please?
Yeah, so this is basically an on-call contract for medical services, and really the nitty-gritty is it's for all pre-placement. So it's part of our recruitment and hiring. So it's our non-DOT, DOT drug testing, physical capacity tests, baseline audiograms, respiratory fit testing, anything that is required from an occupational safety and health compliance for all of our classifications, as well as any kind of health ongoing monitoring. So the example of this contract that came into place was most recently with around the 700 employees that we had to review with the OSHA mandate for vaccinations, and having to determine through reasonable accommodation which ones could wear those N95s. It required them to go through a bunch of fit testing, which was allowed through this contract. So that would be an example of how this would be used. And it's for 4 years with a 1-year renewal, and we've used Providence for probably 20-plus years. So we have a very long-standing relationship with them, especially right now with the challenge of recruitment and retention. They're able to meet our demands for scheduling and getting applicants in, as well as like out-of-state testing. So we have just found them to be a good resource and a partner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any objections to this item? Mark?
Just have one question.
Sure.
This 500,000, is that for 1 year?
This is for the 4 years with an extension
For
of
4
1
years?
year.
And does this represent an increase over the previous contract?
It does. We actually found through the new task order process that our departments are utilizing this contract a lot more. So actually, in the existing contract, we had to do several amendments where we were adding like 25 or 50,000 because we just didn't have a good idea of how much the departments are using this contract. So around $100,000 a year is more a realistic gauge on what we're spending.
And this is not to exceed contract, so it's based on how much you're billed?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Okay, any other objections to this?
Excellent job, Trish. Your first time before the board of doing this.
There
Well
we
done.
go.
Well done. Trish works in benefits and human resources.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Trish.
All right, have a good one, you
And
guys.
thank you. The other item we'll pull until next week. So with that, Commissioners, may we move all of these items to tomorrow's business meeting?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Back to the issues list. We have 35 minutes left at this session. Board rules, request for a policy session. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn, but Commissioner Schrader and I are requesting to have a board rules work session as soon as possible to go over some of the drafts we have, and that way we can discuss that, and ideally at some point move that to a business meeting for approval. But the work session is what we're asking. Commissioner Schrader, is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And I'd like to just work with Paul with this and see if we can't. I know
And
we've
so
got
what is the
things to
problem
manage.
we're seeking to fix? I want to know why we're doing this.
Yeah, I know that we had talked about that.
So what's the
and,
problem we're seeking
I
to
think it's
fix? I
just-
think that's a valid question.
I think, well, here's what I think. This is just my opinion, is that, you know, it's an iterative process, okay?
A
So iterative, I mean, it's a living document. So basically, you kind of look at it, times change. It's like the way we operated back in, you know, when I was first here is totally different than how we're operating now. And so it's always good to take another look and review it. I frankly, you know, am okay looking at it. I don't think there's any other reason to look at it other than we just want to do an update. Is that's kind of, I'm not looking for any zebras or anything, I guess. You know, Paul.
Yep,
Paul,
I'm
is that
happy to
clear?
discuss it at length at the work session, but I think we discussed this several times this year,
But
you know.
I never have been satisfied with an answer. I think it's a valid question.
Yeah.
What are the problems we're trying to fix?
I don't think there's, well, I would say that one of the problems we have is clear guidance, for example, on how we censor in those cases, and how that, if assignments are taken or not assigned or removed, or the privilege of those are removed, how they're reinstated. I think we need guidance on that.
She wants some clarity on that, because I do remember being removed from a committee back in the day, MPAC, because my colleagues felt I was a little bit too close to Metro at the time. But there was no real clarity. They just kind of got together in the meeting and said, hey, you're out of there. And I'm like, okay, whatever you want. I ended up going anyway because my other colleagues.
So are we only limiting it to
I think we're just.
board behaviors? Because in reading all the information that was presented, I don't think we have a clear duties outlined for our clerk who serves our board.
Yeah, I mean, there's other things we could be reviewing as well.
And
Yeah,
I
mean,
think, you know, we
it's not the
assume
only
that
thing.
our clerk does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've hired a new clerk. Our clerk is an integral operational person
yeah.
to this because she does filings and she keeps, she helps run the meeting and she keeps us, and so forth. So I think that, because I've been reading what was presented to me in email, Paul, upon your request, we have board rules from other counties across Oregon. And in Multnomah County's rules, by the way, which I really like Multnomah County's rules, they mention the duties of the board clerk because this clerk serves the board in a very integral part. So I think we would need to address the clerk's duties.
Yeah, I don't know, but we should
So
do
if I
work.
may?
Yeah.
If I may, so are you talking about the elections clerk or the board clerk?
Board clerk.
Board
Okay,
clerk.
so Multnomah County is a charter county, so their rules probably are not transferable, and so I would probably just caution to looking at it a little bit deeper. So in our model, that's the administrator's responsibility, and that's under
Okay.
code,
Okay,
which we're talking about the code, the county code. County code spells out the responsibilities of that are completely under the authority of the administrator, not the board.
Okay, so, but yet, that was presented to us as a model to follow. So maybe we want to redo the email that was sent out as examples of board rules to follow, Paul. So we either do it that way or we don't do it that way. That's why I'm asking these questions, because
Sure.
in our email, we have several counties' board rules presented to us. So since I like Multnomah County, gee, we can't use it because
Yeah,
we're a
'cause we're a
charter
charter
county.
county.
So I guess, Paul, I want to know what the problem is we're trying to fix, and I want to know what the ground rules are going in. But we're not establishing ground rules here. But I do think a discussion is important for us to happen today.
Yeah, duly noted. Chair, you and I worked on the same model. I made revisions, you made revisions. Legal counsel's codified that. I got probably some ideas for edits, but I think to discuss it as a board with all of us here at a work session that we're asking for and requesting via the county code, to put that on the agenda so we can have that discussion. I
But
think
we've
Commissioner
also-
Scholl, if I may, Commissioner Scholl, for example, asked about the Lane County model. I would like to sit and chat with Commissioner Scholl and find out what it is that he finds appealing about the Lane County model, for example. So I think a group effort as a board to try to come upon some agreement for these board rules and have it codified in the county code. So we are fixing something, frankly, and that fix, as I earlier stated, clarity on censuring board assignments. If a board assignment is unilaterally removed by the chair, the county code doesn't say that the chair has that authority. And I don't think that should be something unilateral. It should be a board decision, not something that's pulled by the chair.
but that's what we did too, Paul.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
We're not even following our own rules, so I think to
I
codify them.
don't even know that that's in a rule. I think
No,
that's an
no, I mean,
assumption.
when we did a censure, like I was censured, it was the other colleagues that decided. The board chair brought it up, and Bill brought it up, and Larry agreed, and there you go. That was just when we had three. So we have done it before, but are you talking about just codifying that framework, right?
There's censuring and there's assignments. I think they're two different things.
Well, yeah,
They
that's
can
true, too.
relate to one another, but I had my vice chair privileges somewhat quietly revoked twice.
Well, we all, I think what we're talking about is how we, okay. It gives us some structure in how we get along with each other, I guess, is pretty much what I see this as. I mean, just from my viewpoint at this point. Because like with liaisons, for example, I'm not as particularly, if I want to go someplace with a colleague, if it's two now, I can do that. So it's like I don't need the title of a liaison, but it seems to help operationally, so we do have one point person. Does that make sense? Okay, so I don't know, I think this is just more operations, and, is what I'm seeing it as. And I don't think, okay, let me be really direct here. I don't think we're talking about authority or power or anything like that. You have the authority of a chair. I mean, have the authority and the standing as a chair. Okay, and I don't think we're talking about that. I think it's how we interrelate with each other. And what are those guidelines specifically?
Well, I think that's fine. I'm going to interject
Yeah,
here.
because I don't,
I'm
not into
concerned
that.
that we're going to develop a product that's going to be used as a weapon
Yeah.
against a
yeah.
board member if we disagree with anything they say or do. Now, the county commissioners are the only authority, I think, besides the voters, to remove somebody from
Yeah.
office.
Correct.
That can impose sanctions or discipline. Now, regarding Commissioner Scholl's liaison duties and censor, we did that by motion. We can undo that by the same motion. I don't necessarily believe that we need a rule that tells us how to do that. In fact, I have floated the idea many times, and I intend to, in January, to float a motion to restore his liaison duties. But I'm going to have a bit different conversation on that. So for every action we take, I believe it's already codified in county code and law, and then we take the opposite action to redo it. Now, and I have here censor member assignments and liaisons, and admittedly, I have not read every single one county's rules in here. I don't know what the other counties do about that type of thing. Now, our county code says that there's a vice chair to run the meetings in the absence of the chair. It doesn't allow any other duties by that. And my experience, and it's limited to since 2013, is by the grace of the chair, has allowed the vice chair to come on and do extra duties. That's an allowance, that is a gift, and I think that's a very generous opportunity that the chair has given. I don't think it's necessary, because it says in county code that the chair, as in Multnomah County, shall set the agenda. Now, if that change is made, I'm going to tell you right now, that needs to be voted on by the population.
No, I don't see that as.
I don't see that. I mean, that's not, there's no intent there.
No.
Okay, well, that's not the understanding that I received.
No.
So,
From who?
is there anything else? Well, you.
No.
You just said, as vice chair, I've been, I mean, Paul, you just said that a few minutes ago.
What I said is that my privileges as vice chair have been revoked twice.
What privileges besides running the meeting?
Well, Chair, it's been established for quite a long time now that the strategy meetings are, that the vice chair participates in those. And as of a couple of months ago, you ceased that.
There are no strategy meetings, Paul. There are not strategy meetings taking
If you
place.
want to change the name, you can change the name, but the meetings are still happening.
Paul, I meet once a week. Gary and either or Stephen, we set the agenda forward. Anybody could put anything on the agenda. We are winding down to the end of the year. I have made that very clear to the board. You said privileges. You want to codify in our code certain privileges for the vice chair. I submit to you those.
My draft has no language at that point.
I submit to you those are not existent since they're not in our current county code. The vice chair operates in the absence of the chair to conduct and lead the meetings. In the event the vice chair cannot be present, the next person with the most seniority takes over that position. So Paul, if you're wanting to do board rules because you feel slighted, or you feel that you're not getting everything that you think that you deserve as vice chair, I am not willing to add that into the rules, and I'll be very clear on that right now. And that goes for any vice chair. In January, we will be selecting another vice chair.
Chair, you're talking over us and you're making points and cases and arguments that don't exist. There's nothing in my draft that has anything to do with the vice chair privilege. Chair, you're conflating the censuring with the assignments. I'm talking about the liaison assignments as well. There's nothing in my draft that you have read that says anything about the vice chair responsibilities.
But you brought
I'm talking
it up.
about liaison responsibilities and so forth, and those assignments and how they're done and how they're withheld and how they're reinstated.
Paul, you have brought that up twice in this discussion. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, it's been made mention about the county code. Now, I admit that I need to learn more about what the county code says about the processes of the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah.
I think that's important for me to understand that before or at the time of the work session that we discuss the ideas about adopting rules, okay? So that we know exactly what is in effect now, what we might look at adding in adopting board rules. But, you know, one of the things I have a question on is that when we look at adopting board rules, do we look at them from a perspective of a guide for professional behavior, or do we look at those rules as a guide to prevent bad behavior? And the other thing on that is that any rule or regulation has to come with some ability to punish those or correct those who violate those rules. Otherwise, for example, I can go from my house to here at 180 miles an hour in my sports car, but I don't do it because there's a speed limit. You see, in other words, there's a punishment for bad behavior. So we have this Clackamas County Board of Commissioners commitment to operate with compassion and efficiency. It's right here. It's on our desk every day. It's up here when we have our meetings, and we can go through here and see where some commissioners have violated this flagrantly during the course of this last year. So, again, I as a new commissioner, some clarification on how the board is to operate would be a beneficial thing for a new commissioner. You're welcome aboard. Here's your welcome aboard package. Here's the rules. That might be helpful. But again, as we look at this and go to the meeting to discuss this, I would like to be able to scrub through the current county code, see what's there, and be able to identify what we might need in the way of rules, if any.
Yeah, I love your analogy. I mean, I basically saying that here's the road you need to go down. But either way, we're not going to tell you what the speed limit is, but we'll tell you when you violate it.
Well,
because that's what we have right now.
Well, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah, well, exactly, yeah. Which, we don't like surprises, right? So.
And it ought to be fair, right? And the speed limit for you driving down the road should be the same as the speed limit for the rest of us.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
Well, my thought is this, is a guide to, and I wrote down what you said, it was very good, Commissioner Scholl, a guide to promote professional behavior. Is that a rule, or is it just a guide? We have that guide sitting right here.
We do.
Or a guide to punish bad behavior. So are we going to outline in these board rules degrees of punishment that we're going to inflict upon fellow commissioners? That is not appropriate.
Well,
the drafts don't, the draft that you worked on, Commissioner Smith, is, doesn't, I mean, you made your edits. There's nothing in there. If you made the edits, you certainly didn't strike or add anything or that would be contrary to what you're stating here today. So I think it's self-evident that if other county commissions in this state have board rules, and ours are, not very few and far between, that we step up our game.
So I wonder how many counties have a document like this.
That's not really a document, is it? I mean, it's a guide.
No, this is Performance Clackamas Plan. That's a document, and it's very expensive. We also have, this is a document. Documents defined as something in writing that Commissioner Savas, you have pointed up to us many times. We're not following this, we're not following this, and I don't know who is going to be the arbitrator or judge of who isn't following accountability or honor the rule. I mean, how do you really think that we're going to act as a judge and jury and monitoring whether we have compassion or whether we are doing our jobs? We are independent elected officials, Commissioner Savas. So I don't expect an answer today. But if we want to discuss this in a policy session, I'm going to be bringing up these issues and asking my board members, how are you going to do that in a fair, compassionate, responsible way, knowing that we all are independently elected people.
Officials.
So are you asking to add enforcement?
No, I'm not, but you are.
I'm not. No, I'm not. There's no. Where's enforcement in my draft rules?
Well, we're not there yet, Commissioner Salas. We're not there yet. Okay. Commissioner Schrader.
So this is obviously, if we move ahead, and I really have done this as a courtesy for my colleague, because I have a lot of respect for him, as I have for all of you, you know that. And I'm, the reason I think maybe we should talk about it, and dare I bring up the dreaded R word, do you want a policy session, or do you want to have another retreat where all we do is work on it, something like this, about how we behave? No, okay, we'll do policy session. Thank you, God. Policy session. But here's my experience in a different context, okay? And will you give me, give me a chance just to mention this. So when I worked at the monastery, they have the rule of Benedict. And everybody's supposed to follow that rule. And when they don't follow that rule, usually it's the abbot or the vice abbot or the group, the community. But remember, it's a group that takes a vow to live and stay and work together and abide by the rule. And, you know, some people get censured, some people don't. And let me tell you, by no means is that environment perfect. And what I want to say is it doesn't, you know, these are people that take a vow and they still don't get along with each other. Or they still do things to one another that you're just like, what are you thinking? And that's not kind, that's not. So I kind of see this as more of a guideline. It does give us some structure. The rule of Benedict in the religious context gives structure. And I think we're talking about a secular structure of how we move forward with this and how we, you know, just have the conversation and see where it lands. But to think that this is really going to stop us from being mean to each other, because we will be, or to be unkind, or to get upset, or to, that's not going to change human behavior. It just gives you a guideline that you want to aspire to, so. You know, to me, it's more aspirational. But then remember, I'm not interested in the title piece of any of the what people may perceive as power and authority. I don't care about that. I just want to do the job, okay? And just know what the ground rules are. You know, I don't really want to be the boss of anybody, okay? Really, I raised 5 kids. I'm done, guys. I'm done. What's hard enough, really? But it's a context, and we won't be perfect, even if we change this. Even if we change the document and we come up with this, we're still gonna screw up, guys. I mean, come on, we're human. We're still gonna have issues. We're still gonna not.
Paul, you've established that you have stated, not established, that we cannot adopt any other board rules from a county who is a home rule county.
That's not what I said.
You said, well, I mentioned Multnomah County. You said, well, you know, they're a home rule county. That doesn't apply to what I wanted to do. So going in, if...
That's not what I said.
Well, that's how I took what you said, and because when I mentioned the board clerk, which I considered Multnomah County's rules quite astonishing and surprising to myself to be very good operationally.
Okay.
And it also outlines what jurisdictions they have authority over, for instance, their water environment services, their boards and so forth, that we do not mention in our rules at all. So I'm not going to argue anymore with you. If 2 people want to bring this up, I think we have a lot of hard lifting to do this in our policy session. I will say, from now until the end of the year, starting next week, not all 5 commissioners will be present at one time.
I wouldn't do this until
the end.
Yeah.
Can I finish?
Yes.
Till the end of the year, or whenever we can tee it up. And it's up to Gary to find time on the schedule with the PAs. So, and it would require all commissioners to be present in the room.
Okay.
We're not going to do a Zoom hybrid. And if one commissioner can't make it for extremely valid reasons, then we'll wait until they can attend.
I think that's fine.
Okay, Gary?
So the soonest we can schedule is January. So we'll find a time in the books when all 5 of you are present. And Stephen, if I could work with you, we'll prepare the staff report and all the examples and bring it forward for you. But January will be the soonest.
That might be the one thing we do all day.
We'll plan plenty of time. Okay, moving on. Next, Independent Legal Counsel for County Service Districts. Commissioner Savas asked to add this as well.
Yeah, thank you. It became very evident a couple weeks ago at a work session when we had the topic of the Concord property. And this is not about the Concord property, but what took place there is something I've raised for years, and that is when it is not clear what hat we're wearing. So I just want to let you know that, for example, that at that particular meeting, we had parks issues before us, which is NCPRD, a standalone county service district, its own jurisdiction. We had library issues before us on the same presentation, another jurisdiction, a county service district, recognized its state laws as a standalone jurisdiction, and the county, 3 parties, and we had the meeting wasn't called as such, and we were not wearing those hats or thinking what was in the best interest of each of those districts. So I think, and I have seen from prior documents from the prior county council's office dating back 10 plus years ago, 11 plus years ago, documents where the chair of the county commission would sign a document on behalf of one district and sign the same document on behalf of the other, and there was clear delineation and separation, and the meetings were often held as such. County commissioners, you're wearing the hat of CCSD1. Do you want to get in an agreement with, let's just say, the library district? It's not probably the best example, but there are documents, and there was a history of that. We need to clean that up, and frankly, I think that someone could actually make a claim that the meeting we held was in violation of public meetings law. And I'm happy to cite some of that, but I won't get there. But I really think that, frankly, as there have been some, and the administrators are aware of this, there have been some challenges with NCPRD, for example, that I think have compromised and disenfranchised the citizens of the district. And I think that independent legal counsel would help guide that and make sure that agendas and so forth are properly set. This would be an expense to the district. It would not be a full-time position, I would think, because typically other service districts, special districts in the state, just hire legal counsel either on an hourly basis or an annual contract basis. But I think we need to clean up our act, and I don't want to subject ourselves to any kind of a legal challenge because we violated public meetings law, and we do it frequently. I've raised this with each chair of this commission since I've been on the board, and it's still not addressed.
Okay, I'm going to interject here, Paul, for the record. You have never approached me that I am in remembrance of since I've been chair, that we are in violation of public meetings law. Okay, secondly, we have 10 attorneys on staff who I think are extremely capable and know our business well. Thirdly, we just heard from Mike Bork a few minutes ago saying that the NCPR budget is upside down by at least $240,000. They were able to find one-time funding to move forward, but moving forward, they're going to have trouble paying their bills. I don't see how that district can afford an outside counsel at this point. And you have made some various serious allegations where I have yet to be satisfied of proof that these activities are going on. We have counsel in the room here, Stephen Madcore. If you would like to come forward and address this or not, it's your decision.
You probably should put on your hat as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board for this discussion.
Okay, do I adjourn and enter?
No, I just
said
you're
stay.
now meeting as the Board of the North Clackamas.
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
I wasn't at the meeting that Commissioner Savis is referring to, but whether I was or not, you have to meet in some capacity. Whether you're meeting as the Board of County Commissioners, as the governing body, as the county entity, or you're meeting as the governing body of NCPRD, or if you're meeting as the library district, you have to meet in some capacity. If you're making a decision on those districts, then you can change the hat, and you often do during consent agendas, Chair. You will recess as a BCC, and you will convene as WES, and frequently you will sign a document on Milwaukee Bay Park on behalf of here, and this on behalf of another entity. You do it frequently with WES, you'll do it frequently with a variety of other entities as well. So I maintain that we abide by the law, the spirit and intent of the law, the public meetings law on a regular basis. I will concur with Commissioner Savis at times. The board might not necessarily have
Which board are we referring to now?
It could be the board for West, because you have a ratepayer base at that. It could be the board for the Enhanced Law Enforcement District. It's a smaller district. It doesn't encompass government camp. It doesn't encompass Canby. You have a smaller district. Same with NCPRD. You do have a smaller constituency in those situations than you would as the Board of County Commissioners. It doesn't mean your decision-making is flawed by any means. It does mean that you do have a tighter focus and a different client base, so to speak, than you would if you were just doing it as the Board of County Commissioners. I don't know if a separate lawyer is going to help you in that regard. I don't see a lawyer's responsibility as being developing an agenda. I don't see it as being a lawyer's responsibility to tell you who you're meeting on behalf of. Certainly, you as the governing body of those entities are well equipped to handle those issues themselves. That said, I have no objection whatsoever to this board saying, let's allocate a certain amount of money for outside counsel, maybe to aid NCPRD or somebody else in that regard. I will say, though, outside counsel oftentimes will result in some type of internal conflict. It's going to be inevitable. When we did it with tourism, when we do it with other situations, there's going to be a effort to be a little bit more autonomous, a little bit more separated from the mothership, which is the Board of County Commissioners.
So if we're looking for autonomy on NCPRD away from the Board of County Commissioners, that's a whole separate discussion.
Absolutely.
That I think that needs to be approved by the voters of Clackamas County, which I'm more than willing to have at this point. If there are violations of public meeting laws, Paul, I need times, dates, and the action that was taken. Now, are you saying that when the BCC puts on a separate hat as one of these other service districts, that we are in violation of public meetings law? Since I've been here, I can't see that. Or are you saying that when these groups meet out, like the NCPRD board, are they in violations of public meeting laws and they need an attorney present? I'm not sure what the problem is that you're trying to fix on this.
Yeah, I will, I'll say this. I'll just give you an example. The meeting we held two Tuesdays ago, was it posted on the NCPRD website? No. Was there public meeting notice on behalf of NCPRD? No. Were there minutes taken? No. Did it violate public meetings law? Is it required? Yes, it did.
So what's
If you
the
want an
violation?
example, I'm not here to condemn. I'm here to clean this up.
Yeah.
My goal is to clean this up.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, question from Mr. Madcore. Wouldn't we be able to satisfy Commissioner Sabas's concern for counsel by tasking one of our existing attorneys downstairs to represent those different districts?
Or are we talking just about NCPRD?
Well,
That's currently what we have, Commissioner Scholl. We have Jeffrey Munns, who's assigned to NCPRD. And then previously, we had Chris Story assigned to NCPRD and, NCPRD, and he also had CCSD.
And then you have somebody for Wes?
Correct. We have Amanda
Okay.
Keller there for
And
Wes right now.
so, Commissioner Savas, wouldn't that satisfy your concern?
I have high regard and respect for Mr. Munns. Mr. Munns sat here two weeks ago,
Yeah.
2 Tuesdays ago, and sat right there, okay? Now, was he legal counsel for the library district, or was he legal counsel for the county, or was he legal counsel for the NCPRD? The point is clear. If you want, I'm not here to make waves. I'm sure anyone could file with the Secretary of State for a violation of public meetings law.
Are you
It's
inviting the
recurring.
action?
I'm not suggesting that. What I'm here is to try to clean that up. Because if we don't think separately as a board, our responsibility is to think, what is in the best interest of NCPRD? Okay? When that session happened. Also, we're also just as conflicted as legal counsel would have been to think, what was the best interest of the library district during that discussion? Oh, and by the way, because the county is a signer to the agreement with Gladstone, what is in the best interest of the county? So those could be three different things. But I don't think any of us took our hats off and thought about them separately, but it is our responsibility to do so.
I'm inclined not to approve the request for additional dollars just because it's going to be very expensive for one of our districts who is barely keeping their head above water. Commissioner Savas, my sincere recommendation to any of our commissioners, if you have an issue with county council, please sit down with them, talk it through, maybe reassign duties, it's up to Stephen, and then bring it back to the board for approval. Hiring more counsel to come in, what I have seen, even in our independent elected officials, has indeed caused conflict. It has cost more money. And again, I don't see a problem here that needs to be fixed by hiring outside legal counsel. In your statements, I think, have been extremely inflammatory. In fact, Commissioner Savas, you have invited somebody to file a charge on this BCC of meetings law violation, and I take great exception to that, and I'm in disagreement, unless, of course, I can stand corrected. You show me proof where this board, either acting as the governing body of the BCC over all other jurisdictions in the county, have violated public meeting laws, then we will correct that. Hiring an outside attorney at this point to go into past actions, I don't see how that's going to fix anything. I think we need to be mindful if there is problems of our future actions. I think that can be accomplished through our existing county council, who is very adept, and we have very capable, intelligent, we have 10 of them, is that right, Stephen?
10.
Yes.
10. Okay, we ought to be able to find somebody down there that can represent a park district.
Sure you can.
This is not a conflict, this is not a conflict with legal counsel. This is not a disagreement with legal counsel's office. This is a problem that we need to be disciplined as the board. The attorney is not here to fight our attorney. The issue here is this attorney thinking independently and guiding the board, us, on how to better respond. And I think that is impacted. I don't think, frankly, that NCPRD or the library district cannot afford to have independent counsel to guide this board. And I think especially NCPRD, I think, frankly, the citizens have been impacted, disenfranchised by that, and I think it's been significant.
Well, any independent body can go hire an attorney on their own dime. However, for us to do it at this point with tight budgets moving forward, I always have felt, since I became on chair, that my number one duty is to protect our general fund budget and the budgets of all these districts moving forward, because we have significant roll-up costs, and that includes the addition of personnel. Stephen.
Chair, we are convened as the NCPRD, so you're talking about the county again. That's the problem.
You have
is that we switch hats and we don't think independently.
Well, the thing is, Paul, we can discuss any issue regardless of what hat we're wearing. I believe that is appropriate, unless it is deemed non-appropriate in some action by law. Stephen Magcor, you have...
I was just going to say that our office will commit to be more mindful of which hat this board is wearing, whether it's during an executive session, a policy session, a consent item, and whatnot. We have strived in the past to make sure that you are identifying who you're representing and who you're governing for. We'll make sure that you follow through with that in the future. We'll commit to that.
Gary?
As will I. So what Commissioner Savas is referring to is during issues. So as administrator issues and updates 2 weeks ago, I was not here, but if I was here, I should have said, you are now discussing this as this body, and I wasn't here to say it, and I didn't brief Coach Nancy to say it. So that's also on me, because this was under issues, although I do want to say respectfully, you made no decisions. That was an update that there would be following policy sessions where you would make decisions.
Right.
But regardless, it could have been better noticed of who you were meeting as at that moment. So I will take responsibility as the district administrator for NCPRD that I did not notice that either. Thank you.
Okay, so two commissioners need to leave for a meeting. We will continue our issues and updates at the end of the policy session.
To this afternoon, yes. And we start at 1:30 today.
1:30. I do have a very important item that I need to bring before this board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We will recess and reconvene at 1:30.